I got these shirts available. Wrong cam. Hopefully everyone's not glued to their TV watching the votes slowly tick in on this election night. So hopefully your person wins, whether it's a boy or a girl, whatever you want. Doesn't really matter to me. But what I want to talk to you guys about tonight is I'm putting new performance products and packages up on the website. So we have the cams up there. Obviously, we've got the low buck truck camshaft, and we have the truck plus camshaft. So basically, you have one camshaft that adds like 60 horsepower, has I like to call it just the right amount of chop, works with a stock converter, adds 60 plus horsepower. It's a really good cam, works with boost, works with nitrous, works with blowers. That's not me boasting about a cam. That's actually me having a discussion about almost any camshaft. So if we picked a Brian Tooley Racing Truck Norris or Chupacabra or a Sloppy Stage 2 or 3 or 5 or 1.5 or whatever. And I honestly, any of those cams, whatever they do, if you add boost to it, you can add boost to it. If you add nitrous to it, you can add nitrous to it. You can add a supercharger, whatever. They all work like that. And my cams also do too. So that cam is really good. And that's really the most popular one, I think, because you're talking about something you use with a stock converter. You get a 60 horsepower gain. It adds power down low, which a lot of guys want. It has a little bit of chop, so just the right amount with a cam that you can use with a stock converter. So that's a very, very popular cam. And again, if you want to take that cam that you could put in and use with a stock converter, and then you change your mind and go, you know what, I'm going to add a turbo and I want to make 1,000 horsepower, it will do that. Like a lot of cams. Again, not magic. Lots and lots of camshafts will do that. So you want to make 1,000 horsepower, you want to make more than that. You just keep turning the boost up. So you can do that. So there's a big range. If you want a camshaft that makes another 12 to 15 horsepower on the top from about 5,000 on up, the Truck Plus cam makes more power than the smaller low buck truck does. It does make less power down low, as that's typical of camshafts. If it's picking up a bunch of power up top, you trade power down low, and that's what these two camshafts do. So both of those are available. Both of them can make power. If you want, you want more on the big end, to pick the bigger camshaft. Most people pick the low buck truck, but I actually, in the month of October, I had a big run of. In fact, I ran out of the Truck Plus camshafts because I started sending out the dyno results for both of the camshafts when people send me emails and are going, hey, look, I want information on the cams. I send them the information on the cams, what kind of springs they use and all that, and then also send them graphs on all of them. And for whatever reason, I just got a big run of these Truck Plus cams, and we sold out all of those. So now I have more in stock. And in fact, I had back orders of both cams there for a little bit, mostly of the Truck Plus stuff. But all of those, everything will be taken care of tomorrow. So we'll be caught up on every order, and all the cams will go out, and that sort of situation is not going to present itself again. I'm going to have excess of everything that I need, so that I don't like not being able to, because usually for me, my day is I wake up, I go down, I look at all the orders, and then I go and create shipping labels, and the people at UPS know me. They're like, oh, here's the crazy guy in the red truck again, unloading, a truckload of cams or whatever. And I do that every day. So I miss doing that. And so I don't want to ever not be doing that. We want to make sure that we're taking care of all the customers that order stuff. And so we're doing that. But now that we have the website up, we have a Shopify. And so we're adding new products to it. So this is what I want to get you guys involved with. We're adding new products. We're going to be adding LS products right now. If we expand it later on, we can expand it later on. But right now, in this month, in November, I want to get at least 10 new products up. So when I ask you guys what you want to see, there are some fairly obvious ones, because the questions that we get, if they're any indication, because when I send people this information, when they ask about information for the cams, what are the specs on the cams? Does it need springs? Does it need lifters? Does it need push rods or whatever? There are things that they ask about. And so a couple of things that are definitely going to happen is we're going to have springs. So we'll have the 550 lift, like stock springs, LS3, LY6. LS6 springs, and also I probably will carry the some of the BTR stuff, because those springs work really well for that camshaft. So we'll carry the inexpensive $79 ones. And then the other thing I want to make available are injectors. So we want to do injector upgrades, because if you put a camshaft in that adds this much power, in almost every case, you need to have bigger injectors in it. And it's always my recommendation that you go bigger than you want on the injector. That way, like we talked about, if you put this camshaft in, you put a cam and springs in, the next thing that you're going to do is boost. So if you're going to put a turbo on, then you want to have injectors enough to add boost to it. Now, I don't recommend that I'm going to put 2000 cc injectors in it because later on I want to go to the moon. I wouldn't do that. What I do is put enough injector in it. And my go-to thing are like the Deca 80s, but I have found some really application specific injectors. And by what I mean by that is, when I put the standard size Deca 80s and everything, we have to space the rails up depending on whether I'm using it on a truck manifold or an LS6 manifold or some aftermarket manifold or whatever. So I'm going to carry a couple of different size injectors that are designed to work with. Probably the most common one would be the truck manifold, because when a guy goes and gets something from the wrecking yard, that's what they get. And so if I can have an injector that's just a replacement injector for the truck injector, that instead of being a 25-pound injector is a 50 or a 75-pound injector, that will give people a lot of leeway to make more power. Between 70 and 90 is still easy to tune and has a good range in terms of power. And also, you don't have to worry about idle quality. So we're definitely going to do that. So we're definitely going to do injectors. We're going to do springs. We'll have turbos on there, because the ones that I recommend the most often are, GT35s, GT45s, 78, 75s, and S475s, maybe S480s, maybe a couple of different turbos available there. I don't want to overwhelm it. I don't want to be the place where people go to get turbos. It's just that I get asked for those things a lot because they want to use the one that I used when I did the video. So I want to make those available. So we'll do that. So, and then if we're going to do an injector, I should have some kind of in the tank pumps, some 340s or 420s or whatever they are. So the guy could drop an in the tank pump in. I'm not going to carry, triple pumps and all that stuff. If a guy wants to do that, there are other places that cater to that sort of thing. But for simple things, if a guy could, like, would you guys let me know, would you want to see a package where we had a pump and an injector and a turbo and an intercooler and a cam and springs? Would you guys want to see that kind of stuff? So please let me know in the comments what kinds of packages, and don't get elaborate on it. I don't want to put 15 things in this package, but if you say, hey, look, what we'd like is obviously a cam and springs would be a natural thing. Could you do that with a cam and springs? Do you want to see lifters in there? For me, my go-to lifter is the lifter that's already in the motor. If I go get a motor from the wrecking yard, I'm going to use that lifter, because the lifters are if it was a running motor, and we usually test them on the dyno, if it's a running motor like that L33 that I just got, or the LC9, the LC9 is not a good example because it's a DOD deal. And we showed how to do a DOD delete on it and stuff. So, but if you have a combination that's a running combination that already has lifters in it, I don't replace the lifters. I don't put LS7 lifters, and I don't put Johnson lifters or whatever, any sort of lifter upgrade that a guy would put in there. I don't put short travel lifters. I don't do any of that, because the kind of motor that I'm building doesn't justify that. Because I put together a wrecking yard motor. I put a low buck truck camshaft in it, put springs in it. We put bigger injectors in it. We run it, and then it makes power. You put a turbo on it, and then it makes more power, and all that works out really good. So there will be some fairly, to begin with, some other products, particularly we need to get springs and injectors and pumps and stuff. But if you guys want to see some packages together that are, small groups packages, I don't want to have a $3,000 or $4,000 or $5,000 package that a guy has to buy, but a cam and springs, especially $79 springs and less than $200 camshaft. That's a really good deal. Because I've seen some of these packages that these guys sell, and if you keep adding things on where they have these drop down menus, you're like, man, I just spent a lot of money. And we want to try to keep it simple and keep it affordable for people. And that's why I wanted to introduce these cams anyway. So let me know in the comments if you guys have packages that you want to see. We'll go ahead and read through some of those and figure out what we can do. And then obviously we'll have shirts. I've got red shirts and blue shirts in honor of our voting. They're all wrong cam, and I do have a number of different sizes now. I ran out of the first order of those, and then we had a couple of 3Xs left. Now I don't think I have any 3Xs, but I have a lot of what I ordered, a lot of what we sold most of when we did the first run of them. So I've got reds and blues, and I've got from 2X down to like large to 2X. I think sold the most of those. I probably have a few mediums, but I don't think we sold that many of those. Usually, unless somebody is small like me, or they're getting stuff for their wife. So we'll see what you guys are doing. Let me know. As I said, let me know what kinds of products that you want to see, or what kinds of, packages we can combine together to get a couple of different products on there, because we'll list those separately. I'm not going to have drop-down menus where you just add a bunch of stuff. So I'll have a cam, I'll have springs, I'll have a cam and springs, because I'm not going to have 15 different cams and all that. So you guys let me know. I might add a third cam, but right now I don't have anything that's going to be that inexpensive. So there might be a third cam that I could put on there that would be like a 230 plus cam or something like that. Something that if a guy wants to make even a lot more power. That way I think I would have all the ranges kind of covered there for camshafts. Eric, Springfield, Illinois. Mad Max, Mad Mod. Like, share, subscribe, ring the bell. That's right. 6-8. I am selling cams still. They're selling very well. The website of Richard Holdner Performance. It's RHP, and the top secret tagline is going to be RIP. So it'll be cool. We got some fun stuff planned. Tim, what's going on? I prefer a basically stock engine, but just add nitrous. That would be okay. So if you want that, you'd say, hey, Richard, you should have an inexpensive like Fogger nitrous setup. Richard, I have a 96 454. Okay, so it's a Gen 6. Switching to an 0411 ECU. What cam would you recommend for a towing rig? You can look at a couple of the cams that I ran, but there are some small ones that Comp makes, and something that's going to be 212, 218 kind of thing, I think for towing would be good. Did everyone get out and vote? Yeah, I voted early. I didn't have to do it today. How about fuel system in a box, different horsepower ranges, injectors, pumps, lines, fittings, regulators? I'm not going to do lines and fittings, because lines and fittings are going to be, a lot of that is going to be like chassis specific, and I really don't want to get into that with and without regulators. What do we want to see available for sale? Trick flow for 351 box intake manifolds. Oh, you want to see a copy of them? Small block Ford trick flow stage 2 cam copy. Okay. Reputable injector between Deca 80 and Bosch 210s. Oh, something that's bigger than that? I've seen some 90s, but I don't know. I haven't tried them yet. I've missed these for the last 3 months. XMO. Alan, what's going on? Been missing the chats. Ben, shame on you. DOD VVT delete. Full kit with cam springs, gaskets install. So really, a DOD and a VVT delete is a really expensive thing. I remember Brian Tooley had sent me one of his setups that I did a video on, and it was amazing how much stuff was there. We need an aggressive cam, name the wrong cam. Every car I own has a wrong cam. They all do. You should stagger medium and long tubes in a fast LSXR intake and see if you can get the performer RPM result from it. I have done that already, actually. When we ran the adjustable fast, I think that was on a rec port, because I think that's the only one that they had. But a couple of tests that I did, we ran the longs and the mediums and the shorts, And then I also switched the lid to show what effect that plenum volume has. So we ran the LSXR top and then the LSXRT top and ran that without changing the runner. And then we did a mix and match of the longs and shorts. We were trying to make not an RPM, but a Victor Jr. because what a single plane intake manifold has typically on a Ford application, but on the LS, it's the same way because it's a symmetrical port, is it has two sets of shorter inner runners, and then the outer runners are all long. So we tried doing that with the manifold by putting the long runners on the outside and the short runners on the inside. And all it does is just make a curve that's not as good as having just the long runners in there. Hope you sell a reputable injector with all the bad and fake deck injectors out there on the market. I won't do snake eaters either. Okay. Package setup. The nice thing is I have access to an ASNU machine, so I can test a lot of stuff. A package setup for most people who don't know what they need. Yes, for lifters, people trust you, so knowing we can get good lifters through you and not the cheap knockoffs. I would have to do a lot of research on that because I would also want to make sure that whatever I get is the right thing. One, to lower my 1/8 mile drag time. I have two options. Hit the nitrous earlier, 100 shot. I'm currently hitting at 5,000 RPM. What is your launch RPM? Are you hitting it like off the line? Or step up to 125, which would be less stress? Well, I think you should go up in, like going from 100, what is the, I have other questions. What is the power output of the NA motor versus how much you're hitting how much nitrous you're hitting with it? Because 100 shot on almost any kind of drag race motor is probably not very much unless you're doing this on a stock motor. So let me know what the rest of the combination is. And I think that I would go with more nitrous, and then I would start ramping it in earlier. Glad you're finally trying to capitalize on, let's see. Scrolling back on all the information you've been giving away on the channel. Information has value. It does. And like I said, what people want is, I mean, they've wanted inexpensive cams and they've got some of that stuff, but some of it's junk out there, unfortunately. But they've wanted a lot of the stuff that I test, and I just have never made it available. The NSR cams were a great idea today. I love the no other mods while you're in there kind of mods. Yeah, I'm surprised that after talking to Brian on his stuff, that the NSR cams are actually not selling nearly as well as the non-NSR cams, as the SR cams. Springs required. Fun fact Tuesday, I never bought the right cam. Exactly. Doing the LQ9 build. And we all suffer from that anyways, irrespective of the fun that we have with this wrong cam statement. But, and I look at that too, particularly because I do so much testing. And when I run 10 or 15 or 20 cams or whatever it is, and we see all the different power curves, the one that you want is a combination of all the you know, the good, the bad, the middle one. And so you always have that, a little bit of that buyer's remorse. You're like, okay, I'm going to pick that cam because I think that that's the one that would be the best for what I'm doing. But this other cam it's like looking at the low buck truck camshaft and the truck plus. You're like, the low buck truck is probably the go-to thing, but it sure would be nice to have the other 15 on the big end. And you think about that while you're at the times that you would be accelerating from above 5,000 RPM. You're like, man, another 15 would be good here. Doing the LQ9 build with 243s, BTR LS3 stage 3 cam. Okay, but home porting the heads add any additional power. Yes, I don't know what intake manifold you have, but ported heads would definitely add power if you did it properly. Weekend Warrior starter kit sound like an awesome plan. If I get a stock LS3 aluminum and bore at 4070, would a forward stroke crate fit without cutting out the bottom for the rods? I don't know. I think it's dependent on your rod choice. You may have to notch the bottom of the bores. But that's a mock-up and an easy thing with a die grinder. That probably takes 15 or 20 minutes if you had to do that. What do you think of BTR Stage 1 V2 LS3 on a Pontiac 6-liter? I don't know what the specs are on that cam. I don't know all of the specs on all of his cams. Also, there's a way to find out which pushrod lengths I would need before opening the engine up. No, there's no way to know that until you put the camshaft in and you actually go to assemble it, unless they know at BTR what the and I don't know if they would know this or not, what the difference in base circle is of that cam versus the stock cam that you have in your motor. Because then you could do a calculation and figure out what the change in pushrod length is, if you even need that, because you have some variation in acceptable pushrod length. You have a turn and a half, essentially. M9112 install kit for budget installs or guides for people. Tom Demuse already has that. He has adapters and kits that you can use to, like the adapter plate and stuff that you can use to put on a high ram or a low ram already. I just want some V10 2-valve cams for the lucrative V10 2-valve cam market. Too late for me. I already bought EV14s, but can you briefly discuss DECA versus EV14? Is there a big price difference? I don't know. I don't know which two injectors you're talking about. Just missed this 1970 Mach 1 351 Cleveland 4-speed, matching numbers for 7,000. It's an old friend of mine. Thought we'd never sell the car. That seems like a good deal. Have you tested step headers on an LS? Yeah, we have some step headers that we've run, and there wasn't a big change in power from the step headers to the non-step headers that we've run on the LS stuff. So they're at least the ones that I've tested there, I didn't see magic there. Wrecking Yard find today, you found a LS3? I've never seen one of those in a Wrecking Yard. What's your website? Fancy? Yeah. It has, but does it only have one thing up there? Does it have two things up there? Looking for a retrofit roller, small block Ford cam between 206 and 210, 480 and 520. Doesn't Comp have that? You want roller cams for Oldsmobiles? Again. When are you getting black shirts? I haven't ordered any of those, so never right now. Should my next batch be, should I have black ones? I have a 76 460 and an F100. What cam do I need to wake it up with a good rumble? Are you going to keep the rest of it stock? And is it a 76 is going to be a 4-barrel carburetor, right? What's the induction system on there? Any sort of mild RV cam would be my recommendation for that. It seems to be what most people are happy with. So anything from like a 206, 212 to a 212, 218 kind of thing, I think would be what most people would put in there. A spool cam. You want the cam to spool the turbo up? Are affordable proven in the tank and external fuel pumps? Fuel pumps are planned. Probably not external ones, but I'll have to look into it. If you were to get some free Richard bobblehead. That would be cool to have little small ones. And it'd be even better if they were billet and I was holding like a turbo or something or a camshaft. That would be awesome. What I want is, have you guys ever seen the whistles that are like the little propellers inside and you go woo, woo. So I want that. I want a whistle that's a turbo and that you blow into the whistle and it makes that whistle noise. It's the little things. Doing my first L3 build this winter, planning 4070 bore, 4-inch crank with a 6125 rod. Can you go? So that's just 5 over. Yeah, you can go 5 over on an LS3 block. 6125 rods, 4-inch crank, and pistons. Okay, that'll be good. So are you doing a flat top piston with valve reliefs then in that? And upgrading for OEM unequal length manifolds. Can you gain decent power and torque from good design, equal length short tube headers if you're going to use high flow cats? No on shorty headers versus stock exhaust manifolds. but depending on what engine family you're talking about. So you can get some decent power gains on a Dodge, like Dodge Ram Hemi, because those stock exhaust manifolds are terrible. And so if you put shorty headers on that, you actually do gain power. Or if you put the SRT8 manifolds on there, you do gain power. On an LS, their factory manifolds are already good. And so putting shorty headers on does almost nothing. Long tubes do stuff because they have a scavenging effect, but shorts do that. High flow cats, you might pick up power from that just from them flowing better than the others. Bring back the 400M. It wants turbo and a boost. I don't even have that motor anymore, but they should be fairly easy to find in the wrecking yard, though. Got a 2004 Ford 3.8 liter, has long tubes. Windstar intake. Is the Windstar intake like the go-to intake for that? I'm not hip to the 3.8 liter Ford stuff. Throttle body from a 4.6 liter 2-valve. The cams, you might do something to spice that. No 3.8 liter Ford V6 cams. How much is a low buck truck? They're $179 plus shipping, so that normally comes out to $199. BTR LS3 stage 3 camshaft. Okay, that's the 217 230 plus 230X is that's the hot rod cam. So yeah, that's a good cam. I have tests up with that, not on an LS3, but on a 5.3 we run that cam, and it did well. Turbo 400M sounds like a good idea. Trying to run it on my 6-liter and Caprice. That's fine. That cam will work good on a 6-liter. It has 2 camshafts for sale on the website. Yeah, that one is the low buck truck, Tim, and one of them is the Truck Plus. Nesquick. Thanks for the videos. Yes, that's why we have this, so that we can all talk about information that we all have and share it. Oh, we don't have a poll. That's right. Somebody just mentioned that. Okay, that's not good spelling. Should Richard sell cam and springs and injector combos on the website? Come on, 100. Come on, keep it 100. Show me a 100. Show what? No whammies, no whammies, no whammies. 100. There we go. And then that's down to 86. I knew somebody would do that. There's always those. I have a stock Chevy 350. Nice. Plan on putting it into my 89 Dodge Dakota with long tubes and a Holley Sniper EFI kit with a turbo 350. Any advice for heads up? Yeah, have you already bought all of that? The Sniper stuff will work. I personally would choose a carburetor just to make it easier. A distributor and a carburetor and a small cam and put it in there. Turbo 350. But that will all work. I wanted the Truck Norris for low down torque, but various people told me that they don't do good in a G8. How would the camshaft know what car it's in? It doesn't really know that. And actually, the Truck Norris and my low buck truck camshaft do very well. They would be even better for low speed power in a 6-liter than they would in a 4.8 or a 5.3, as long as it's tuned properly. That's a great poll question. Should have shirts made in black. There we go, right? Poll, and yes, do black shirts and hide the stains. I know. A while back, I bought what was supposed to be a turnkey 383 stroker and tried to turn it over by hand. Found that the block wasn't clearance for the stroker crank. That's not good. It's not a hard fix, but the thing that the nervous that I get when I see stuff like that is like, okay, this is an easy fix. I'll just take the pan off. I'll grind it. I'll use a vacuum cleaner. I'll grind it. I'll clean everything out. I'll put the pan back on. I'll run it. That'll be fine. If that's the only problem. When I see something like that, it immediately makes me think, okay, They didn't do that. Like, how do you put a motor together and have never turned it over? Like when you put the short block together, you turn it over because you turn it over to see, you have to do that just to put the pistons in because you want to put them in the right spot, the crank in the right spot when you're putting the pistons in. So you put the rod down on, you put the rod cap on, and you could tighten, torque, torque all the rod caps and all that. So you would always turn it over. And when you're doing that, I'm, even if it's just in my head, measuring the drag when you put each piston in. Okay, did we put another piston in? Does it still spin over with the second piston, and then the third and the fourth and the fifth? And do I continually increase the amount of drag that we have, which is what it does when you're adding more ring drag to the combination? Is that still working? But in order to do that, you have to spin the motor over. And that happens long before you put heads on or a pan or front cover or any of that stuff. So I just don't, seeing stuff like that would make me worry that there were other problems. A while back. Okay, there we go. There we go. Merrick's, thank you very much. What's the best camshaft for an L92 6.2 liter? You're going to have to be more specific. What is it you're trying to achieve with that? Like, how much power do you want? Do you want to work with a stock converter? Do you want it to run 8,000 RPM? I hope not. What heads and intake manifold are on there? What transmission is in there? What is your usage? Like, what are you going to be doing? Are you going to be road racing it or drag racing it or just driving it on the street? Are you going to be towing with it? We need information to pick the best camshaft. The Windstar manifold looks like a plastic version of the 3-liter SHO V6. Oh, cool. Does it have the dual runner stuff too? The Windsor made more horsepower than the split port V6 manifold than the split port V6 Mustang, and did it earlier on the revs. Okay, cool. Yeah, because it's it's all about towing. Are you aware of any dynos near Sacramento? I've never been to any in this area. There's supposed to be an engine dyno place in Sassoon, but I reached out to them, but they were not very friendly. Terminator Max X LQ4 cam 225, 235, 113, 317 heads. What do you think about intake manifold injectors trying to get close to 500 wheel horsepower? You won't get 500 wheel horsepower with that camshaft and 317 heads on an LQ4. Unfortunately, that's not enough camshaft, and you need to 500 wheel horsepower is 600 flywheel horsepower. So if you're going to do that out of a 6-liter, it has to have really good heads on it, like airflow research heads, trick flow 225 heads, some kind of head that flows way more than 300 CFM. It's going to have a bigger camshaft in it that's like 235, 239 or 245 or whatever. It's going to have a big camshaft like that. That BTR Stage 4 LS3 camshaft is a good example of what you would need. A 317 is not going to get you there. A ported one, if it's done professionally, like by the guys at Total Engine Airflow, like the ones that we used on the Big Bang motor, that has enough flow to get you there, although it doesn't have a good chamber design and it's low compression. You need a really good intake manifold, like a fast could get you there, but even better, some sort of short runner thing that allows you to make more peak power would help you get there out of a 6-liter, or you can make it a 408, and then it would be a lot easier to do. Super 6 Performance used to make 3.8 Ford cams. They made 4.3-liter stroker kits. Oh, that's cool. I misclicked on accident. Come on, Mad. I got a 2002 Silverado. Welcome to the club. Best truck and year ever. I swapped to a 4.8 from a 4.3. Oh, so did it originally have a V6 in it? I've been fighting a limp mode issue for a while, and it seems electronic. Do you think the cam position sensor? I have no idea, because there would be no way for me to know what you did with the swap. Did you swap the whole harness and everything into that? And is the engine harness, like, does it have to communicate with other body modules and stuff on that early car? I just don't know. So there could be a lot of issues that are going on there. I'm not much for swap stuff because I don't do that. We only just run them on the engine dyno, which is easy. have a 93 OBD1 LT1, looking for tuning options. I saw how you did the distributor, and it's a very expensive kit to run on a 411 PCM. I want OBD2 diagnostics and to get away from burning a chip. Yeah, I don't know what the answer is there. It's probably the other ECU and the LS stuff, but I don't know how inexpensive that is. And doing the distributor the way that I did it in the factory manifold is a terrible option unless you had a mill and a guy that could weld and do that properly. Or you could maybe put the TPIS mini RAM on there with because it already has the provision for the distributor. All right, Eric, we'll see you. Did you say hides the stains and covers BO? Sometimes I smell like the Valley of the Park Jerry's car in Seinfeld. The Beast. That was good. You're saying you want a piece of me? Should I ever test an LT5? I haven't. Westec has, I don't know if they still have it. They had one, but we never ran it. Yes, sir. I have everything on the motor on a stand. I got the gasket kit today from an eBay special and got the Holly kit on a deal on Facebook for $500. Cool. Good. Making the deals. I'm interested in building a boosted 363 stroker out of a 5.3. My theory is that the thicker cylinder walls of the 5.3 would be quite boost friendly. Okay. Found a lot of information. Is it worth doing? So how are you going to make it from a 325 or 6 up to 363? Are you doing just stroke only with that? And if you're doing a boosted motor, my question is, why are you spending money on doing the short block stuff? Because a 5.3 with just a turbo on it is a pretty fierce deal. If you do a 5.3 with a cam and springs and injectors and that stuff, you don't really need to do a stroker deal. If you want to do that and you're putting forged internals in it anyway, and you're like, well, I'm just going to put a different crank in it anyways, and rods and pistons, that all works too, but it's not necessary for making, anything. Like you can make 1,000 horsepower pretty easily with just a 5.3. I need work on the Magna ride, but would consider coilovers. Do they make replacement stuff for that? Again, that's not what I test, but another question about injectors, EV4 versus Deca, higher price injectors like FICs or modified Bosch EV14 units. They tend to be better at idle since they're faster and more linear at idle and cruise. So have you actually seen the injector slope comparisons of those? I'd like to see that. I'd like to see if that data is available. I know that having run the 80s on everything from V6s, I think we definitely have run them on 4 cylinders also, and V6s and stuff all the way up to whatever the injector would flow. And I've never had any issues with them. But again, I'm not doing drivability that much. And and I find it interesting, and maybe this is just because I don't know enough, but I get people that ask a lot of times, well, do you have all the injector data of the injectors that you ran on that motor? I'm like, well, what do you want? Well, my tuner needs all the injector data. I'm like, I don't have any injector data other than me flowing them and making sure that they all flow the same. For what I'm doing, we just have the lambda meter tell us what the thing, we know what it wants, and the lambda meter tells us what it is, and then tells us how we need to adjust it. Maybe if you're trying to scale it relative to the mass air meter or something, that you would need that information, but we don't on a speed density setup. How much is it to run an engine on the dyno for the average dude? It varies all over the place. From probably, I would imagine that they're $1,000 or more for an EFI one. I have Petters coilovers on my Stang, and I love them. Track them Laguna Seca with no issues. let's keep this talk going until the election is over. Check your grounds. Yes. Swap the whole harness, PCM, BCM from the donor truck, but I swapped every sensor but the cam position. You can check it and see. Cam position sensors are cheap at the wrecking yard. I make sure that I have one with every motor that we get. 2003 GM changed the harness for the 4.3 throughout the trucks. Early model years of the VQ have terrible OEM manifolds. Our shorty hitter is going to help widen the power band to get more punch down low and keep the power climbing up top. Are you running this? Is the VQ that you're talking about, is it a naturally aspirated one or is it a turbo deal? I don't know what they look like. If they are a flow restriction, then you will have a bigger change in power at the top of the rev range than you will at the bottom of the rev range, because they're having to flow more exhaust at the top than they are at the bottom. So that's just a flow thing. That just stands to reason. If that's the case, knowing almost nothing about that particular motor, it'd be hard for me. And having never seen the exhaust manifolds or seen any testing done on them, I'm just speculating. Who are you barking at? You're barking at Brady? I'd like to see flow testing on those LT5 heads. If you have the data, I'm sure it's on the web, but I trust Westech. That motor has never been apart, so it's still completely assembled right now. They've never taken it apart. Several things can cause limp mode. Need to check the codes. Yeah, you should, if you have the factory ECU all hooked up, you should be getting codes, right? I don't know what you're barking at. Huh. I know, but you got to lay down for a little while. I got a few more minutes. Make sure the catalytic converters are free of obstruction. Stock engine with a blower or turbo. I got an 88 Wagoneer going, stock 4.8. ES 7875, 50-pound flex injectors. Got to lower my wastegate spring from 7 to 4 to keep the 4L60 alive. Yeah, that's the fusible link, right? Yeah, and 50s will take you fairly far. Speaking of deck 80s, do you know a reputable retailer that sells them cheaper than 362 to 369 for 8 of them? That seems like a really good deal. Shadow Ops saying on a cam sensor, make sure you do a resistance check on them to ensure you don't have infinite resistance. Or how about no resistance? I have an L94 for a 93 OBS truck. Want to build a fun street truck that can tow a 5,000 to 6,000 pound trailer from Georgia to California next summer. What cam would work at best? What is an L94? Oh, 6.2 liter. Okay, I'm not familiar with that one. The Lobach truck camshaft would be a really good one if you're going to be towing with it. If you did fill pumps, would you test and provide flow data at various PSIs? So you want to see what the flow rate is at 10 PSI and 20 PSI and 30 PSI and 40. You want to see what the drop off is. That's hard to do, actually. I'll see if the guys at Kenny Bell still have their fuel pump dyno, because they have that set up to do that. Might go remote canister, but not sway bars. It already has nice ones. I don't remember getting hit with commercials before. Commercials have always been part of this. Stock cam so the wife can easily drive it. Turbo on top for when you drive it. Getting codes, but you clean them and still does it. I know, but you can't just clear the code if the problem is still there. You should read the code and see what it is and then go fix that. No cats or mufflers, but redid all the grounds. The cats are going to create a problem, right? You're going to have a differential between the primary and secondary O2 sensors. Maybe a TBSS type intake with the package. Not sure if there's a budget option for a new one. There used to be I think we used to get the Dorman ones. I bought a couple of them. They were only like, I want to say that they were like $130 back then. Quick question. What block and sleeves did you use on the LS468 stroker? Hold on, I'll think of it. Darton. I don't know why it took so long to search for that. There's only one that I know. Actually, Eagle has stuff too, and I've used those on the Hondas. Yeah, we did Darton sleeves on it, and that was on an aluminum LS6 block. Yes, Richard, you should sell cams and springs and injector combos, cams and springs and injectors. Oh my. Stop clearing codes and write them down. Wow. Tough love. Tough love. There. There. Richard, can you do another video, another guy's video on an international V8 buildup using a 345 or a 392 and keep building it until the horsepower matches the torque? I don't think I've ever even seen one of those in a wrecking yard. But it would not be unusual, particularly for that kind of application, for the torque to be way higher than the horsepower. But it would just take the right combination of camshaft and, I'm assuming, porting the stock heads, because I can't imagine anybody makes an aftermarket head for an international. Maybe I don't know. Did Edelbrock make one? Are there at least intake manifolds for those, like a dual plane or something? Get away! What's going on? Caps lock. Why are you yelling at us, man? Deleting cats is not necessary and can be very problematic for the newer ones. Just leave the cats and give up the 5 horsepower. There. Got a couple minutes left. 97%. That means that there's probably one guy. Man. Get away. It's all good, man. Nothing to worry about. Nobody here is made of sugar. There. Thinking about doing some fun stuff in my backyard. Thinking about building an elevator. I think that's what it needs. How about all the necessary tools for a cam swap? Let them buy from the source along with their cam and springs, gaskets, tools for pulley removal, install spring compressor tool. Well, we could put that down. That seems like a lot of stuff. Gaskets are definitely a possibility. Tools, I don't know. I don't know about I mean, there are balancer removals, but are guys buying those tools, or are they just going to the auto parts store and borrowing them? I mean, we have them at West Tech because they gave them to the guys at West Tech, and we use those. And they have the although I don't use it on the LS, but they have the cool like pneumatic ones or hydraulic ones. It's pretty cool. It's both of those because it's air powered, but it's using fluid. I definitely buy cam swap toolkit. I think that the blue point stuff, I think, is what we use on the puller. The install tool, I actually kind of made my own. That really is a Super Richie one. And what it is when you use the hydraulic pneumatic taker on and putter offer things that we use for small block Chevys and stuff, they have a long rod on it that threads into the crankshaft, and they have a bunch of different ones because they have different thread patterns in a small block Chevy and a big block Chevy, Ford, LS, whatever. And so I use that big long rod and I screw it into the crank. And then what I do is I put the pilot bushing. I slide that on so it engages with the damper. And then I cut off a square section of tubing that's hollow, and I slide that on there, and then another washer, and then the other end is threaded that you put a nut on, and then I just use that to tighten it down, and I just need to get it in enough to where then I just run it in with a bolt, and that seems to work pretty good. I can do that fairly fast. Don't forget about blindfold for the cam bearings. Yep. These Fel-Pro Permadry units, are those? I'm not familiar with that name on the LS stuff, but I normally put MLS stuff in. But is a Permadry a name for that? I'd buy those tools from eBay and Amazon. I'd buy for a slightly higher price from you. Oh, that's nice to know. I bought all the removal tools. So what did you need other than the? Are you talking about just the spring compressor stuff? Those are pretty cool, and like the double fork ones, that stuff worked pretty well. Aero over hydraulic is what it's called. Okay. An affordable engine stand and cradle is also what the market needs. No Harbor Freight stuff. Yeah, I don't think I'm going to go into that business. I'm sure I have, I don't know, 40 Harbor Freight stands. Because every time I go get another motor, I got to go get another stand. But for storing them, I like the little rolling, we've had them for small block Chevys and small block Fords and big block Chevys forever. I would imagine Summit or whoever sells those also for LS stuff. The V12 LS. Yeah, I actually had that shipped back from Brian Tooley because we're not going to run it there. And I shipped it back to the owner of it. And so now we'll see what's going to happen. I don't know. I'm hoping to get it running. That's a whole thing. It basically just because it took too long to make all this happen. And during that period of time, there were lots of changes that took place that stopped the thing from making it be easy. And let's put it on the dyno and run it and be able to tune it. Just imagine you can order from Richard with a smile. So do you not have good results with Jegs or something? I order. I don't remember the last time I ordered anything from Jegs, but I do order a lot of stuff from Summit. I've never had anything but good luck with the customer service from Summit. A big bang package, a couple of turbos, and I use a tire until I need a stand to work on the engine. Having it on a stand is a lot easier to work on it rather than trying to roll it around on the floor. Tires I use a lot though to transport them. We throw a tire in there at the wrecking yard and put 1 or 2 or 3 or whatever, how many we get, and we need to fit in there, and those work well. Jake's raised the price on me $800 after I clicked buy. They changed the prices on me. I had to have the shipper intercept the order. Wow. We Robert, so we don't, there's no politics here. I don't care if you're red or blue, it doesn't make any difference. You're not bringing that here. This is a automotive performance channel, and that's the way we want to keep it. We can also talk about, which is one of the things I do want to talk about later on, is we could talk about snakes, and that's open. Always, any kind of reptile. And then one of these times, I want to talk about the dark side of the moon. I want to get your guys' feelings on the dark side of the moon. Does nitrous reduce airflow at a given RPM, or would it increase the airflow because of condensing the air inside the intake? It decreases airflow. So what we did was, and that video's up, you can see it already. We ran a plate system on a motor, mostly because I didn't believe this, because it added so much more power. I'm like, it has to flow more air, right? It went from 400 to 600 horsepower. It's going to flow more air. No, it flows less air. So you run the NA motor and you have an air hat on it, and it measures the amount of air that you're using to make that kind of power. Then you put nitrous on it and you hit it with 100 shot or 200 shot, whatever you hit it with. And when you do that, the nitrous and extra fuel displace some of the air. And so even though you've made more power, because you've made more power from the extra oxygen molecules in the compound, they're released in the process and you make more power. But because it's displaced a bunch of the airflow, it now flows less air. That's one of the problems with nitrous, and why you can't just indefinitely keep adding nitrous, because now you've brought the airflow down so far that it can't process that anymore. UFOs are always good, yeah. But UFOs would be part of excuse me, UFOs would be part of the dark side of the moon conversation, right? I mean, that'd definitely be part of it. Pink Floyd. On the dark side of the moon. Hello, what are you doing? What are you doing? Who's a good boy? Come up here. I know, huh, Brady? Brady's a good boy, huh? You are a good boy, huh? Nothing like face rubs, huh? That's awesome, huh? Do you miss Milo too? We do, huh? We do. We miss Milo, huh? That was our big brother, huh? That was our big brother, huh? What? Go get your Baba. Where's your Baba? Go find one. What? How come you're not petting me? How come you're not petting me? Huh? Hello. Okay, I'm almost done. Then we can go out. And dark side of the moon is like the South Pole. That's right. You'd think with all the satellites that we would know what's going on the South Pole or the North Pole, all the poles. He's happy. The innators are the best things. Dr. Doofenshmirtz was awesome. Are all 4 poles? At least the magnetic one. Dark side of the moon is where they keep all the 100% efficient engines. I was watching a clip of one of the guys that I watch, and he was talking about somebody that he either did I don't remember the exact story. He did an interview with them or something, and this person was sent something that was easy to put together, and he put it configured on an internal combustion engine, and all of a sudden it took away all of the harmful effects, and it just produced water, and and I'm like, okay, that's good. So attach some sort of alien technology to it. I'm like, dude, you have no idea how much I want that to be the case. And I'd love to see that. Maybe he just made a catalytic converter, huh? Let's see. Holly Terminator X or stock ECU to tune a non-boosted Texas Speed 408 stroker. You can achieve the same thing with both of those. A Holly would be easier because you wouldn't have to run the mass air meter and stuff. And I don't know if that's going to be a restriction for what you're doing, or if you can put a bigger version that's not restrictive. Because on a 408, I would think a stock mass air meter would become restrictive. And on a speed density system, you can make the air inlet system as big as you want. So that's not going to be an issue. And maybe you can do that on the stock systems too, just by being able to recalibrate the meter when you put it in a bigger tube. But if that's an issue, that's something I would consider. Boosting happiness out. That's right. But the thing is, there's no reason you can't run boost with cats and all that stuff, and so that you're not polluting, and that's okay. I'm all for that too. Having been down in LA when you would put out smog alerts that said it is unsafe to be outside. That's not cool, and there's no reason it has to be like that, because it can be, your car can be fast, and it also can be, clean. So there's no reason for you not to have that. Overlap is hard to tune with cats. Dark side of the moon. That's right. That's where all the buildings are, and I don't know, apparently all kinds of stuff. And my question is going to be on that. Well, we'll wait. We'll talk about that later, because I have a good poll for that. So it'll be interesting. On that note, we have to go see whether or not we have a country anymore. But I will see you guys all, regardless of what happens. I will see you guys all tomorrow.